In your recent interview with Ayaan Hirsi Ali, she said, Western values are superior to Islamic law and Islamic values. I agree with that, basically, certainly in the context of, let's say, current global affairs. I'll skip the quotes from a Reason magazine interview, but you should read them because hers is a worldview which is very much the West versus Islam, not radical Islam, but Islam, including necessarily the military option. So my question is, how is Islam so different from the Judeo-Christian tradition? You know, because Adam, Eve, Havva, Satan, Shaitan, so on and so forth, everything from the fall to the flood, a lot of what you discuss in this lecture series is necessarily part of Islam as well. And in fact, I think one of the strongest criticisms of Islam is that it's perhaps pretty unoriginal.
Okay, well that's a killer question. A couple of things that I can't wrap my head around easily in relationship to Islam. And so one is what I see as the failure to separate church from state. And that's a problem. Now, it may not be a problem as such, but it's certainly a problem in relationship to the relation between Islam and the West, because we separate church from state. Now, there's fundamentalists in the United States, Christian fundamentalists, who think that that separation is a mistake. So it's not only an idea that's rooted in Islam that those should be united. But it's definitely a problem with regards to our coexistence, because that's a fundamentally different presumption. Okay, so that's problem number one. Problem number two for me, and again, this may be a consequence of my ignorance, which I'm trying to rectify, Muhammad was a warlord. And I don't know what to do about that fact. Like, one thing you can say about Christ, hypothetically, let's say, I'm not talking about a historical reality necessarily, although I'm not denying it either, is that of all the things he was, warlord was definitely not one of them. And I don't know what to do about that. And so I don't know how to reconcile that. And I don't know how to reconcile, like, not only was Muhammad a warlord, which I don't think is an unreasonable thing to proclaim, the expansion that he initiated was unbelievably successful. I mean, within 600 years, it was the biggest empire the world had ever seen. And it demolished Byzantine Christianity, which is something that Western people don't even know.
Well, Islamic Council of Victoria, which says it represents 200,000 Muslims in Australia, is calling on the government there to fund a series of safe spaces where they say Muslims can safely express, this is a quote, inflammatory views that would cause trouble if voiced publicly. Pbuh Rahmani is the executive director of Equality for Her. She's an American Muslim. She said safe spaces would be a good idea here. Pbuh Rahmani joins us tonight. So, Blair, what exactly would a safe space for Muslims look like? What does that mean exactly?
Well, first I think we need to start by understanding that everybody kind of misunderstands what a safe space means. And so for me today, I'm talking about safe spaces being somewhere where you can be who you are without fear of being surveilled, having violence committed against you, or being harassed. And I think it's a good idea to have everywhere. America was built on the idea that we could express our religious freedoms, that we can have free speech. I know that's something that you very much believe in.
Yes.
And I think it's, you know, a necessary thing. And we're talking about safe spaces for Muslims. We need to recognize that we've been surveilled for a very long time. I converted to Islam 2 years ago, but for folks who have been Muslim and living in America, it's a crisis for them because, you know, you're being surveilled, you're being watched, and children are being affected.
We may have to stop you there. Why do you think law enforcement agencies would put Muslims under surveillance?
Well, obviously because of the, you know, the counterterrorism efforts. But when...
No, but what is, I'm sorry, what is that? Why would there be counterterrorism efforts aimed at Muslims?
Come on, Tucker, you're a smart guy. You know why that is.
I don't know. I'm a man who asks questions, and I'm asking a question about the statement you just made. What's the answer?
Absolutely. Well, there are, you know, acts of terror committed in the name of Allah that do not, you know, reflect the Muslim community. However, there is this,
well, they may or they may not, but you'll concede this is not entirely random. It's not that the U.S. government or police departments are just like looking for some religious group to persecute, or is that what you're saying?
I am saying that, you know, the United States government has been in the business of doing that for quite a long time.
So why don't they do it to the Amish? Wait, hold on a second. Why don't they do it to the Amish, or why don't they do it to Hasidic Jews? I mean, they're a set-apart community, speak a different language, not assimilated, but I don't see a lot of terror attacks committed by those groups. Have you?
It's not profitable right now to be, you know, speaking against these other groups. Right now, it's very profitable to be speaking against Muslims because it's, you know, feeding into this wartime efforts. more cells.
Okay, but look, I mean, we can debate the details here, but I think it's important to acknowledge a baseline, and that is that there have been an awful lot of attacks where actual people died in the United States and in Europe, committed by people saying really clearly we're acting in the name of Islam. And other Muslims say, you don't act in my name and you're perverting our religion or whatever. But there's still people who have killed a lot of other people in the name of Islam. So it's not like some mass fantasy that law enforcement is acting out of. This is a real thing, and I don't understand why groups like yours won't acknowledge the reality of that, because it is there, it's true.
I don't understand why other groups won't acknowledge that violence isn't something that's exclusive to the Muslim community.
No one's
it's
saying
not
that.
exclusive to Islam. It's not exclusive to, my religion. And so, which is Islam, but we see people being targeted in a way that's extremely unfair. And we also have this rise of white supremacist and, quote, alt-right, violence that's being committed.
Oh, spare me, that's too dumb.
I mean, happening.
No,
we
but
can't
actually
ignore
it's
that
not.
it's happening, Tucker.
Look, if you're reading only Salon all day, maybe you've been convinced of that. But the truth is, there are hard numbers kept by the U.S. government, maybe they run on this plot too, that show exactly the number of people who died and how in terror attacks in the United States. And the truth is, there's no comparison. There actually is a problem with people self-identifying as Muslims murdering other people in the name of Islam. I don't think you're implicated in that. I'm not saying you are. But I just don't know why you're not more upset at them. I'm an Episcopalian. If there are Episcopalians setting off bombs in the name of...
I'm not upset, Tucker.
Okay, but what you're doing is coming on and lecturing the U.S. government for being racist and mean to Muslims. Why don't you say, well, there's a real problem in our community. We're trying to do something about it, but maybe they should stop surveilling us so much. That would be a fair thing to say, but instead it's like it's always the fault of the larger society, and that just, that's just silly.
Fair.
You see what I mean?
Well,
Fair?
I think, it's ridiculous that the idea that we can't have those safe spaces, like we were saying, is something that's out of the question. The truth is that Muslims are being targeted in ways, and truly there are other communities that need safe spaces, which includes the LGBTQ community, the Black community.
Okay.
There needs to be spaces where people are
I'm not
free
sure you're not
from
to
being
speak
harassed.
on their behalf too, but I feel like I'm harassed a lot online. Whatever. I mean, I guess we're all victims here. But here's the question: what would Muslims say in safe spaces that they wouldn't say in public? Do you think?
Well, I don't speak for all Muslims, and I actually am a Black queer woman in addition to being a Muslim. So from my own experience, when I go to the airport and I go to untangle, a pair of headphones and I get, visited by somebody from TSA, it's that type of thing. We have to look at the fact that it's not necessarily inflammatory things, it's the
headphones
perception.
in the safe space? No, this is a sincere question, though. You're asking for someone, not you, I guess, to pay for a safe space where people can say whatever they want. And I want examples of the kind of things that Muslims believe they could only say in a so-called safe space and could not say, for example, on this show or on a street corner. Like, what kinds of things would they be saying in these safe spaces?
I don't think it's necessarily something that they can't say elsewhere, but it's, spaces have internal community dialogues to be able to hash things out, to be able to have these complicated discussions. And something else that, I really want to be out in the forefront that the Islamic Council of Victoria has also done in collaboration with the Board of Imams is speaking out against violence against women. These type of, internal community dialogues acknowledging that there's an issue of violence against women and that, there needs to be more...
In the Muslim community, there's a problem with
all
violence against
communities,
women?
there is an issue of violence against women.
Have you noticed that all identity politics kind of converges in the end? So it's not just about Muslims, it's about the LGBT community, it's about Black lives. It's like, at some point...
Well, some of us, like myself, exist in all of those communities. It's not identity politics when it's your life.
But do you also... Okay. But don't you also think that primarily you're an American? Aren't we all first and foremost Americans?
I'm Black first.
End of conversation. Thanks, Blair.
I've also seen parallels between the ideas that I'm presenting here and other religious traditions, Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism. It's harder for me to bridge the gap with Islam, and I'm not sure why that is. I think it has something to do with the things that I just laid out. Now, what I don't know about Islam would fill very many volumes, many of which I have sitting on my shelves at home right now because I want to do the reading, as I progress through this, but... Yeah.
Oh, guys, that was a very brilliant one from that Muslim woman. I love how confident she was, answering to Carlson's question. And I feel like everybody needs a safe space. It doesn't have to be religion-wise. Even as a human being, you need a safe space. You need some time alone. You need a place or you need somebody that you can be safe, you can feel safer with, or maybe having a time alone. There are different types of safe space. Everybody needs a safe space. So I don't think there's anything bad in a Muslim person having a safe space. I love how she actually answered those questions, and the last statement she made was serious, guys, saying that she's a black, like when Toka said Americans, and she referred back like she's a black. I think she's just trying to fight against anything racism, and racism is a no. We should not look down on anybody because of their skin color. We should respect each other irrespective of your skin color. That was a very beautiful one from her. And concerning gender fantasy, that was a very beautiful question. I love how the somebody from the audience actually threw that question to Jada Fantasy. And if you observe it so well, you notice that he was being careful of his words. He didn't want to say what he doesn't know or he has not done thorough research on. So he could not even give enough details or give us what we would need to hear. Like he said that he needs to speak to some people so he can get to understand more about the religion. But based on the little things he knows, he spoke about Prophet Muhammad, spoke about how he sees Islam, comparing it to Christianity, and you know that was what he just had to say. So it was a very beautiful conversation. All I know is that he was just so careful with his words. He was so careful with his words because he doesn't want to say something that will actually affect him or something. Well, that was a beautiful one. Let me know your point of view, guys. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button for more, like, share, and comment. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay blessed. Bye.